Grammy. Man, I should have won a Grammy. Should have won a Grammy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to 80's Reboot Overdrive Special Edition. That's right. Dave White is out there saying, "Hey, people, can you guys do more episodes for me?" And Rosemarie and I took that challenge and said, "Yes, we can." So I am Jesse Jackson. And as you can tell, we don't have a blurb kind of well padded out beginning yet. But joining me is Rosemarie. Hey, Rosemarie, how you doing?
Hi, Jesse. I'm good. How are you?
Good. She is 80's music girl, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And we have done many podcasts together.
Yes.
And when Dave was saying, hey, what else do you guys want to talk about? We decided that it would be fun to go through a Grammy journey.
Absolutely.
So here's the premise, dear listeners. For the next 10 episodes, Rosemarie and I are going to go through the Emmy Awards year by year, starting with um, the award ceremony that was in 81, but this was brief for 80, and
Hmm.
kind of go through the things. We aren't going to discuss every nomination.
No,
No, we're going to
'cause that
pick.
would take forever.
That would take forever. So what we're going to do is the big four, at least from our perspective, is we're going to do best new artist, album of the year, song of the year, record of the year, and then if there's anything else that hits us, we may discuss.
Yeah.
And knowing us, that we may go off on a tangent, but that's part of the fun of us doing. So Rosemary, you want to, in case someone has never heard us before, you want to give a little bit of your background before we start talking?
Well, um, I am 80s music girl, and they don't call me that for nothing. I've been embedded in the 80s since the 80s existed, and it's just recently, in the last 6 or 7 years, I decided to make it like a hobby. I put myself on Twitter and Facebook, and people ask me questions about the 80s and their music mostly, and I answer it. And I blast the airwaves with 80s music and videos, and people get a kick out of it. So I think people like to remember just as much as I do. So it's we're all going down the toilet together, I suppose, as far as
And
80s music, because not a lot
yes.
of people like the 80s. So,
hmm
so
and then and then Rosemary and I have done, she has been a guest twice on Set Listing Bruce. One, just we talked about 80s music and her musical journey. And then recently we went through Bruce Springsteen's Devils and Dust album and kind of talked about that. So
that was
um,
great.
we I have a major crush on Rosemary. I just think of her as a sister, that another sister on top of the one I have already, and I just love talking to her. So any chance I can visit with her, I do. Um, I am Jesse Jackson. I host Set Listing Bruce, which is a podcast mostly about Bruce Springsteen, but we do cover other music. I also do a Doctor Who podcast. I'm doing an Americans podcast, and my wife says, "What are you not podcasting about?"
Mm.
So, anything else we need to talk about?
No, I think we should just jump right into it because I keep looking at all of these nominees and winners, and I'm
Yes,
going, "Oh, I remember that.
yes,
Oh, that was such a good album."
yeah. So we're gonna start out with new artist, and the nominees were Amy Holland, Robbie Dupree, Irene Cara, Pretenders, and Christopher Cross. Um, so I remember Irene Cara.
Mhm.
I certainly remember the Pretenders.
Definitely.
But do you remember Amy Holland or Robbie Dupree?
I do remember Robbie Dupree. Um, if I try to remember what he sang, I remember the song.
Okay.
Um, I remember liking it, and that was pretty much it. I don't know if
Hmm.
I'm not sure whatever happened to him after that.
Yeah, I think according to Wikipedia, "Steal Away" was
Yeah,
his big hit.
yeah,
It reached number 6.
that was a good tune.
And let's see, Amy Holland,
Mm-hmm.
according to Wikipedia,
Mm-hmm.
is she looks like she was um, "How Do I Survive" was her big hit.
Okay, I
Now,
don't remember that one.
it looks like she's had 3 albums, not much. So I think this is one of the things that led me to want to talk about this is
Mm-hmm.
historically a lot of people that have been on the Grammys and their pick of best new
Mm-hmm.
artist is not something that stands the test of time. Correct?
Right. Yeah. They and you know the ones that do,
Right.
but the Grammys are about, they I guess the here and now, and they always have
Yes.
been. So if this person stood out at that time and it stood out, its caliber was higher than anyone else's,
Yeah.
then yeah, you won a Grammy, regardless of whether anyone heard from you for the rest of your life or you did
Hmm.
anything else. I mean, that's
Yeah.
15 minutes of fame. You know how that goes.
Right. And um, and I would argue that the Pretenders certainly have stuck around.
Oh yeah.
The Chrissy Hines, I guess
Mhm.
Martin Chambers are the two main people. Chrissy Hines mostly as the voice and has been consistently a strong member.
Yes.
Um, so, but Christopher Cross was the
Hmm.
person they gave the award to.
Right.
Now,
That was who they gave the award to.
one of the things that I think is very clear as we go through this Grammy journey is um, they do a lot of, it's almost a pylon. Like when
Hmm.
someone wins, they win big.
Right.
And as we go through our discussion, Christopher Cross, who is from San Antonio, Texas,
Mm.
he won 5 Grammy Awards.
Yes.
He was just a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, absolutely. He
And
was. Yeah.
yeah, and
Very understated music too.
right,
Very. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Um, and in fact, one of the things they talked about is um, he just didn't ever, after his third album, he kind of didn't get caught up with um, the audience again. Um,
No.
and that's just sometimes really hard to do. Um, so um, the you're in the judge chair.
Mhm.
Would you have given it to Christopher Cross, or would you have given? Oh, and then Irene Cara. We forgot Irene Cara. She was from Fame, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And the she played Coco in the 1980 film Fame,
Yes.
and she actually won an Academy Award, um, Best Original Song for Flashdance "What a Feeling" back
Mhm.
in '84. So she certainly had a decent, at least a short-term, good career. So I assume we're going to knock out Robbie and Amy. Bless their hearts. I'm
Mm.
sure they're wonderful people. So we got Irene Cara, Pretender as Christopher Cross. Looking back at the hindsight of Monday morning quarterbacking, if we mix our metaphors, who would you have given it to?
Well, honestly, and I'm gonna be biased, and I can't help it because you said hindsight, and I can look back in hindsight because hindsight's 2020.
Yes.
I would have gave it to the Pretenders.
Yeah. And there are a lot of times I would argue with the Academy or the Grammys, but um, at this point, Christopher Cross was this force. So I
Mm-hmm.
understand a little bit why they're doing it. But yes, with the whole thing of back and forth, it's kind of interesting to kind of talk about it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I
Hmm.
mean, it's not like, we're going to make a difference any,
No,
40, 50 years later.
no, but this is, that's what we thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we're going to go to um, one of the things I always was very confused about as a kid watching this show is they had a song of the year and a
Mm-hmm.
record of the year.
Right.
Now, do you understand the difference? And the only reason I do is because I've got it in front of me on a screen.
Um, Song of the year, I'm going to speculate it's like the best song that won out over all the other songs, and record of the year has to do with how many records were sold.
So, great guess, but no. Um,
Okay.
Song of the year
Mhm.
is awarded to the composer, and
Okay.
record goes to the performer.
Okay, well done.
And once you explain that, you go, okay, that actually makes a little bit of sense, though it
Hmm.
doesn't really make a lot of sense at all. I guess, what do you, and when you go back to the Oscars, right, you have director, you have all these different categories, but for a
Right.
song, you can have this feeling of, well, okay, song of the year, is it the performer, is it the writer?
Right.
And especially um, in many cases, it isn't the
Hmm.
same person at all.
Right.
Yes.
No, and from what I'm seeing also, it looks as though record of the year and also the producer can also
Right.
win an award for that as well.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
which is cool. I
Yes,
guess
it
if
is.
you're Michael Mardian,
Mm-hmm.
is a,
Yes.
I guess he's still a good music producer.
Right. So, song of the year is going to go to the composer. So, the nominees for song of the year were Michael Gore, Dean Pitchford for Fame,
Mm-hmm.
Lionel Richie, Lady,
Mm-hmm.
John Kander, Fred Ebb, theme from New York, New York,
Mm-hmm.
Barry Gibb, Robin Gibb, Woman in Love, Amanda McBroom, The Rose, and
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Cross, Sailing.
Right.
So let's start at the beginning. Fame. Certainly a song that has, you know, stood the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
That has been, I don't know if it's a great song, but it certainly is a catchy, and if you mention Fame, at least someone from my generation immediately knows Fame, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
feelings on that?
I actually do. I have some strong feelings on that.
Okay.
I wanted the very first time I heard that song, I thought, "Oh my goodness, this is a great song. What's it about?"
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if the TV show came out first or the movie came out first, but all I knew is I wanted to go to the New York City School of Performing Arts. I wanted to go there. I don't know if I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
enroll myself, but I wanted to go there and dance on the stairs and
Mm-hmm.
sing Fame, I'm gonna live forever,
Yes.
and then I'd be happy. because
Mhm.
it was just like one of those songs that was just like, you've got that drive, you're gonna make it. You're from, you know, you're from the big city, but you live in a bad neighborhood, and everybody's rooting for you. So it was like the underdog song of the year to me, and it just got a lot of people going, and it's a good dance tune, and Irene Cara is such an amazing vocalist. Even now, I mean, I listen to some stuff that she's done recently, and she's just
Mhm.
phenomenal. But yeah, it was just one of those songs that, you're up out of your seat, you're moving, you're not sure why.
Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, it was a great song, and it was, a good movie, and it deserved to be nominated.
I totally agree. How about Lady from Lionel Richie?
Lionel Richie's stuff, he's okay. I don't really, some of his dancier things to me are okay. I don't really fall into the
Mhm.
romantic stuff too much,
Okay.
only because I don't know. I was 20 years old at the time, and
Mhm.
it just sounded so, really, gosh, it
Okay.
sounds sappy.
Okay.
So I guess it was a good song.
Okay.
I didn't really, unfortunately, Lionel Richie fans out there everywhere are gonna hate me, but
No, no, no.
it came on the radio. I had a tendency to move it along
Punch it
to
out.
something.
Okay. Moving on then. Theme from New York, New York. Um, so this is, it had been in a movie, but Sinatra recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
One of his last actual songs that charted
Hmm.
became, Liza Minnelli kind of was his song first, and then it quickly became, one of Sinatra's signature songs.
Yes.
Um, and it's also now then forever, New York Yankees, right? And
Hmm.
playing that
Yeah.
during the seventh inning stretch.
Yeah.
How about any thoughts on that?
It's New York. If you've
Yeah,
ever been in New York, you know, people who live in New York love New York. That's
yeah,
all if you've ever been there, they tell you it's a nice place to visit, and you probably wouldn't want to live here, but it's
hmm,
difficult, and the
yeah,
song is right. If I can make it anywhere, you
yeah,
know, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere.
yeah,
And it's true. And it's old Blue Eyes and Frank Sinatra, why not?
yeah. And
He
I,
was the king in his day, he was the king of pop. So
yeah, he truly.
it's
I totally agree with you, Rosemarie, and I will tell you when when I hear him doing it,
mm,
it's kind of gives me a thrill, and kind of a
yeah,
like,
it does.
this is
Yeah.
great. So absolutely great nominee,
Hmm.
very good. Um, Next is Barry Gibb and Robin Gibb, "Woman in Love," and I had to look this one up. This
Mm,
was when the Bee Gees had not been overdone yet,
hmm.
um, and um, Barbara Streisand had an album, Guilty, and this
Hmm.
was a single from them.
Right.
It is one of Streisand's most successful charts,
Hmm.
and um, for $50, I could not tell you how it goes.
Um, I can, but I'm not singing it.
Okay,
So I'll probably get the words wrong.
okay,
But I know how it goes.
okay.
And I love Barbara Streisand for a lot of her early stuff. I loved her in Funny Girl,
Hmm.
and Yentl. I loved her in um, her movies. I loved her for her movies. I loved her voice for a lot of things. I just really didn't find any attraction to the song at all.
Okay. All
So,
right. Amanda McBroom, "The Rose."
oh yeah,
Now, I really like this song.
yeah.
I feel like I shouldn't like it, and I should be guilty for liking it.
Hmm.
But every time, first off, I love the film with Bette Midler, and
Mm-hmm.
I loved her role and I loved this song,
Yeah.
and just the the whole, she kills it on um, the lay, the whole how she uses it, and so I just love this song, and if you're going to use the term guilty pleasure, I think this is one of my guilty pleasures.
Right.
Okay.
Um, this is a good song. I don't think you should feel guilty about loving it or even liking it or even singing it in the shower or whatever because it's the test of time. People are still doing this song. The movie, fantastic. Bette Midler, amazing. It's a tragic story. It's a tragic song. It's very depressing, but it gets the point across, because to me, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's the song that they play. Is it at the end? Like, like that's the last song she sings?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. And it's like, what's that when they call the swan song?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, amazing. I love it to this day. I mean, I don't ever karaoke it, and I probably should, but
Okay.
it's a very, very simplistic, very
It
easy on
is.
the ears, musically it's very
Yeah.
simple and yeah, great song.
Yeah, I do. And it is a very simple song, but I just love the whole lyrics
Mm-hmm.
of when she's going, when the night's been too lonely and the road has been too long,
Oh yeah.
and you
Mm-hmm.
think that love is only for the lucky and the strong. Just remember in the winter, far beneath the bitter snow, lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose.
Exactly.
And I just love that verse. I love the idea that you feel like love's not going to work for you, that
Mm-hmm.
things aren't, and I am an optimist. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that idea that, you know, but it's okay. You just
Hmm.
remember that that you can get this success. So, yes.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's a great song.
Yes. And then Christopher Cross, Sailing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, you know, talk about a simple song,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But man, it was everywhere back then.
Oh, it was. It got a major, major
Yeah,
airplay.
yeah. Hmm. And to talk about just, this whole easy listening and just going away. It's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He nailed it.
Yes.
He had the vocals, he had the harmonies musically, easy to listen to. Lyrically though,
Yeah.
the arrangement of the song, with the lyrics and everything, I don't think I've ever heard anybody else do it. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone else cover Sailing. I'm sure there's thousands of people out there who have done it.
But I
I could not
agree.
imagine
Right.
anybody else singing
Hmm.
it though,
Yeah.
because he wrote it for himself,
Yes.
basically.
Hmm.
Most songwriters do, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
All
So,
right. So we have those six. The
mm,
the Grammy went to Christopher Cross for writing Sailing. Um, would you have gone with it, or would you have?
would have
Uh,
gave it to Amy.
you think
Yeah.
for the Rose?
Mm,
Okay. I may have given it to the John Kander and Fred Ebb for the theme from New York, New York,
mhm.
just because talk about a modern classic. Uh,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
I would not argue if it had gone to the Rose.
Right. Right.
I would not have done. I don't think that's necessarily bad. Okay,
No.
so then we flip to the other side, which is record of the year, and this is the artist who did the song. Um, and as I said, as a kid, this confused me sometimes because often it would be the same nominees, and it
Mm-hmm.
is in this case. Kenny Rogers did "Lady,"
Mm-hmm.
um, and I remember Lionel Richie, but I do remember Kenny Rogers more.
Mm-hmm.
And back then with his little full beard, and
Mm-hmm.
he was, back then there was a lot of crossover between country and
Yeah.
pop.
Mm-hmm.
So I certainly remember that performance. I don't have any emotional attachment to it. You, anything?
Right. No, no.
Okay.
I mean, it came on the radio, and like I said, if you wanted to listen to it, you did, and you
Hmm.
sang it, and if you're not, you just kept going
Right.
because that was pretty much all you had, unless
Hmm.
you're lucky enough to have a cassette player or something like
Yeah.
that. You make your own off the radio. So.
Right. Next up was Frank Sinatra doing the theme from New York, New York. I think we've already talked about that. It's Old Blue Eyes. He's a classic,
Mhm.
and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Bette Midler, The Rose. We've talked about that too. That this is not only is it a great song, but I'm a big fan of Bette Midler. I think she is an incredible um, singer
Mhm.
and a songstress, and she really knows how to tell a story with her voice, and is just an amazing performer.
She is. She is
Yeah.
like the quintessential performer.
Yes.
She does it all.
Yeah. And
So,
then Barbara Streisand, Barry Gibb, "Woman in Love," and then Christopher Cross, "Sailing."
right.
Um, so I'm going to take a wild guess that we're going to have the same answers. Um,
Okay.
I'm right. I mean, I would either pick The Rose or "Theme from New York, New York" as what I think should have been the record of the year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Or
and
would you?
I'm
Yeah,
I'm gonna stick. Yeah, either one of those
yeah,
to me, I wouldn't have complained.
yeah. I agree. Um, but then we go to the big one, the album of the year,
Mm-hmm.
and the nominees were Pink Floyd, "The Wall,"
Mm-hmm.
Frank Sinatra, "Trilogy," Past, Present, Future, Billy Joel, "Glass Houses," Barbara Streisand, Barry Gibb, "Guilty," and
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Cross, um, his debut album, Christopher Cross.
Right.
Rosemarie, are you a Pink Floyd fan?
Yes and no. I like The Wall. That wasn't where I was at the time. I was more into pop music. To me, Pink Floyd was a little over my head.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just, kind of stuck with what I knew.
Right.
So, yeah. And
Okay.
not that it wasn't a great album. I mean, of course, in retrospect, it was an amazing album, but
Yeah.
that's just not who I was then. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, how about any thoughts on Trilogy, Past, Present, Future? It was Frank's first album in 6 years,
Hmm.
and it looks like it was a 3 album set.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, um, you know, I I am more of a kind of greatest hits Frank
Hmm.
guy.
Yeah.
I don't go to the deep cuts. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing against it, just So I'm looking at this though. They had "It Had to Be You,"
Hmm.
"All of You,"
Hmm.
"More Than You Know," "Just the Way You Are," "Something," "MacArthur Park." So it looks like he
Wow.
had some different themes on it. For those who love the chairman, they may be screaming at us, but I'm gonna move on.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think his fan base at the time was,
Hmm.
still strong. There was
Yeah.
still, ballroom dancing and things like that going on back then.
Hmm.
And people knew who they were that loved Frank.
Yeah.
So, if you liked Frank, you probably didn't buy the album.
Yeah.
So
Um, then we go to Guilty, which is, we've already talked about Barbara Streisand, one of her most popular albums. A lot of commercial success. Barry Gibb as a songwriter and a producer. Did you own the album? Were you?
no, I didn't. I
Okay.
always thought that that was a great collaboration, though,
Hmm.
between the two of them. She always had some really good um, vocal and musical collaborations during, her career, early
Yeah.
career. And whereas I thought that, it was good music to listen to, during its time, I can't honestly say I own any of it
Okay.
because I actually wasn't there either.
Okay.
A little too subdued for me.
I hear you. Um, and then the last album, before we get to, is Glass Houses, Billy Joel.
Mhm,
Big Billy Joel fan. I
mhm,
love this album.
mhm,
You may be right. It's still rock and roll to me.
mhm,
Don't ask me why.
mhm,
Just, some of the songs on this. Um, Phil Ramone was the
mhm,
producer.
mhm,
It actually, I think, um, his previous album may have won
52nd Street.
52nd Street.
Yeah,
I
I
actually think did win
think
the
you're right.
Grammy
Yeah.
that year. So, I think certainly a great album and certainly has stood the test of time. And then
Mm,
Christopher Cross's solo album, Christopher Cross.
right.
And we've kind of talked about this was a huge, um, Ride Like the Wind, Sailing.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, I'm trying to think, Never Be the Same. A
mhm.
really big album.
Yeah, it had quite a
Yeah,
few hits off of that.
it did. So once again, which one of you did they get this right? Was this the
No,
album of the year? What should it have been?
hindsight's 2020,
Yes.
and yeah, Glass Houses was on my term table uh more times than it needed to be, probably. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that album by Billy Joel. There are certain times of the day I'll be doing whatever and the song Lena will pop
Mhm.
into my head for no reason.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, "Oh man, I love that song." And I'll go on YouTube and I find it cuz his vocals throughout that whole entire album were just so strong
Mhm.
and so powerful and so clear, and just amazing. I was just like this little tiny person. I don't know how they do it. Him, Brenda Lee, Pat Benatar, they've got this little nucleus inside of them that just
Yes.
produces this massive voice, and it just breaks the rafters. And yeah, I would have been extremely happy if Glass Houses would have won.
Yeah, I agree. I would have loved that. Um, this also was the year of Urban Cowboy.
Hmm.
So a lot of Urban Cowboy songs on that soundtrack, and I sure listened the heck out of that soundtrack back in the day. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Um, Billy Joel did win for Best Rock Performance.
Yeah.
Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band won for Against the Wind.
Mm.
Anything else we need to talk about on this one?
Pat Benatar, best rock vocal performance by a female, Crimes of
Yes,
Passion.
absolutely.
Stephanie Mills, never knew love like this before. She won the best R&B vocal performance by a female,
Yes.
and I actually saw her live in '77 when she was on Broadway doing The Wiz, and
Oh,
they came to
nice.
Los Angeles, and they had the original cast from the play, and I saw her, and I can't remember who played the Cowardly Lion. I want to say Ted. something, and they were walking up the sidewalk, and they had their costumes over their shoulder in a luggage bag.
Oh, how
And we were
cool.
driving by on the school bus, and we're like, "Oh my God, it's Stephanie Mills and the guy that." We probably even said it. It's the guy that plays the Cowardly Lion, and they just waved,
Oh, how
And I
funny.
thought, yeah, and we were like way, 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 way in the back because we got the tickets for free, and it was,
Mm-hmm.
you know, take an impoverished child to a play day or something like that,
Okay.
and I could still hear her, you could just still, the theater is just so massive, and you can just hear such clarity, and it's just such an amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that she won, that made me smile. I remember smiling and thinking, yeah, you so deserve to win that, honey.
Nice. Way to bring it. What a
Woo!
lovely personal story. Yeah, I don't have any, really big connections to these. So thanks for sharing.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah. So thank you. This was so much fun. Um,
Yes.
and listeners, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to rip through it and go and talk about our feelings. And so we want to hear from you. Tell us what we got right, what we got wrong. If they want to give you feedback, Rosemarie, how do they reach you?
I am at 80's Music Girl on Twitter. I am at 80's Music Girl on Facebook. And I am at 80's Music Girl on Instagram.
Easy to find.
Awesome.
I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. I am Jesse Jackson as well on my Facebook page, and we are at 80s. The 80s Reboot Overdrive, and yeah, at 80s Reboot is how you can reach the
All right.
podcast.
Yay.
Yes. So, Rosemarie, hey, we've got our first year done.
First year, 9 more to go.
Yay! So for
Yay.
now, we thank you. We also need to come up with a clever, like, ending.
Right.
Like, the cassette's been ejected, or we've lifted the needle up.
Right.
But whatever it is, thank you, Rosemarie. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.